Yo, what's going on? How's everybody doing, man? Thank y'all for tuning in to another DLE Fitness live stream show. Let's go. Today is July 7th, 2026 on a Tuesday. Yes, sir. Whew. Hopefully everybody is having a good day. Today we're gonna do a rush show. Hopefully you're having a good day and all that good stuff. Hopefully your job is treating you well and you ain't getting laid off like everybody else is and catching a firing and you're letting AI take over and all this good stuff. Hopefully you're having a good day. But if you're not, we're gonna let Mr. Child break it down to you.
Oh, you're having a bad day? Did you die?
I got shot.
But did you die?
And as long as you didn't die and you're still alive, able to get up and make something happen, you're still able to do something great with your life, man. Just stay positive, stay focused, and keep pushing because we're at an inflection point and things is going to change severely. Let's go. Got some hair on the dang thing. So let you know, we are multi-streaming on four different platforms today. I didn't want to upload Facebook because Facebook might have screwed up my whole thing that I had going on. So I said, screw Facebook today. YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. If you're on YouTube, do your boy a favor. When you see that thumbs up, hit the like button. It's greatly appreciated. Get the algorithm out. If you want to contribute to today's show right here, Cash App and Venmo. Cash App, Daniel2888, Venmo, Danny-Daniel-00. Now, with that being said, we're going to get into today's show. I didn't do the show yesterday because I was supposed to do it Sunday, but long day was on Sunday. Didn't do it yesterday because AC went out. Now today AC is still out, so we got to figure out how to get this situation fixed. But in the meantime, I can't let that stop the show, but we finna run through this. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Today I'm going to talk about past slavery and modern slavery situations that's going on today. So we're going to look at slavery in the past, and we'll look at modern slavery that's been going on all today. All right, and we're going to run through this pretty quick because it's a little hot. It's a little hot up in here. I'm already starting to break a sweat, so we finna run through this quickly. I'd rather say just get straight to the point. And let me get my thing up so I can see your chats because I don't see any chats on the screen. There you go. I see chat. Well, I got the chat screen up. If you posted the chat, I can't see it, but repost it. Anyway, so we're gonna dive right into it, and we're gonna go ahead and get straight into this show. So let me go ahead and get everything up, set up properly on the screen, so I got it right, so I don't screw anything up. All right, cool. We're here. We got it going. Let's go. So with that being said, we're going to run this and we're going to start off with the first thing that I have that we're going to talk about, which is, oh Lord, all my stuff is out of order. Oh, this is going to be a show for the ages. Admitted. This is going to be a show for the ages, especially when I need to do it quick. It's going to be a hot one. Yeah, this is going to be rough. All right. We're going to make it do what it do. So we're going to talk about the different types of slavery because, you know, growing up in America, one thing we do know about is the Atlantic slave trade. And then there's other slave trades that happen on in society, which is the Sahara slave trade. And then you have the Atlantic slave trade, the Indian Ocean slave trade, which I think is about the same as the Sahara slave trade. Then you also have the Korean slave trade, which turns out to be I didn't know. I found this out recently. It turns out the Korean slave trade seems to be the longest running slave trade that we have recorded in history. Sheesh. Some Koreans weren't playing around. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at these. So we're going to just run through these really quickly and just let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to talk about the Arab slave trade or the Sahara slave trade, however you want to call it. Some people feel a certain way when you call it the Arab slave trade, but hey, it is what it is. You know, it's just describing what it is. So get out your feelings and shut up. All right. So the first one that we got here, the Arab slave trade was institutionalized in the 7th century following the early Islamic conquest. There we go. Islamic conquest. Those political people that run through and try to conquer the world under the Muslim Brotherhood Act of 1991, trying to take over America, primarily through military raids and diplomatic treaties like the 652 CE Bach. It expanded by inheriting pre-existing trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean routes, transitioning from military captivity to a commercial system driven by demands for labor and concubinage. So these Islamic people are running demands for labor and concubinage, which sounds pretty freaking familiar, which is what they're doing today, what they're trying to conquest going on. The Treaty of Bach and the Nubian origins, the annual slave tributes were exchanged for Egyptian wheat, lentils, textiles, sustained for 7 centuries by camel-led caravans. Let's see if this extends. The key milestones and mechanisms of inception. The trade's beginning is marked by a transition from pre-Islamic customs to a highly organized transcontinental system. So the Treaty of Bach which is in 652 CE, often cited as the formal starting point. The Treaty of Balk was a diplomatic agreement between Muslim Egypt and the Kingdom of Mukriya, modern-day Sudan, or Mukriya, if I say that correctly. After failing to conquer the region militarily, General Amir ibn Alas imposed a pact acquiring the Nubians to deliver 360 healthy slaves annually in exchange for goods like wheat, lentils, and cloth. And this arrangement persisted for nearly 700 years. So he got a slave a day, basically, just about a slave a day. Expansion through conquest. Following the death of Muhammad in 632 CE, oh, Muhammad, good old Muhammad. The raid or the rapid expansion of the Rashid of these two caliphates into the North African and the Levant created a massive influx of prisoners of war. And because Islamic law generally prohibit the enslavement of fellow Muslims, but they sure can enslave everybody else, the state looked outward to frontier regions in the sub-Saharan Africa, Europe, and Central Asia to meet the demand for labor. So, you know, Muslims can't enslave other Muslims, or is this Islamics? Somebody let me know. Can Muslims enslave other Muslims, or is it the Islamic regime that poses as Muslims who can enslave other Islamic posers? Let me know. I'm just curious because, you know, those two are conflicting because you have Islamic who poses Muslims, and you got Muslims who follow Islam. They say they're not the same, which I believe that they're not. But, you know, when you study stuff, you might want to know the difference between the two because, you know, the Islamics, they pose as Muslims. Infrastructure and technology. The trade utilized existing Roman and Greek routes, but was revolutionized by the widespread of introduction of the camel. This allowed Berber and Arab traders to cross the Sahara more efficiently, linking West African kingdoms like Kingdom Empire to the Mediterranean markets. All right, so the primary trade routes they used was going to be the San-Sahara or the Trans-Sahara route, which traveled from Niger Valley and the Sahel across the desert to North African ports. Then you have the Indian Ocean and the Swahili coast. Arab merchants, they established maritime networks connecting East Africa to Arabian Peninsula and India. Zanzibar eventually became a central hub for these operations. Then the Red Sea. This route transported captives from the Horn of Africa and Nile Valley over time. The Hajj pilgrimage also became a secondary vehicle for trafficking through deception. Wow. Deception. So it seemed like religion has been a focal point of slavery and trade routes. And this religion that we're talking about right here in this context right now is going to be either Islam or the Islamic political regime. So you got to make sure you know which one is which. Social economic drivers. The trade was not solely for manual labor. It was driven by specific societal needs in the medieval Arab world. Female slaves were frequently sought for concubinage and domestic service, while male slaves were recruited into military roles as slave soldiers or utilized as palace eunuchs. Eunuchs, it means they chopped off their pee-pees. And yeah, so they had no, well, I don't got to explain what happens when they chop off your pee-pee. When they chop off your pee-pee, the last thing you think about is sex. So therefore, if you have to watch if you have to watch a woman, you know, there's no chance that you can have sex with her because, well, it's off the table. You know what I mean? So therefore, you're going to be a great soldier because, you know, your dick is gone. Unlike the later transatlantic trade, which focused heavily on plantation agriculture, the early Arab trade was characterized by its urban and domestic focus. All right. So we got these Arabs chopping off people's pee-pees, and we have them enslaving women to concubinage, and they call it domestic service. They just basically made them just sit in the kitchen, but they was clapping cheeks for sure. And the male slaves were put into military roles, and then they were chopping off the males' pee-pees to make them eunuchs. All right, so doesn't sound too bad, does it? You know, forcing you to be in a military role to protect their God and, you know, follow the old prophet Muhammad who didn't sleep with a 9-year-old girl. But anyway, I digress. And then let's see, it says then we have another part of the Arab or transatlantic slave trade. It said it was a largely distinct system. Early European traders did purchase some of their first African captives from Arab and African merchants. European traders, they purchased some of their first African captives from the Arab and African merchants who operated pre-existing networks. While African middlemen and internal raiding eventually became the primary supply source for the Atlantic route, Arab-run trans-Sahara routes established the commercial foundations and occasionally supplied North African markets that Europeans initially utilized. So we have the old white man comes in, or the European. The European could have been a black man too. We don't know, but in this case, potentially if there were Europeans going over to the Atlantic side, to the Americas, we kind of understand how that situation kind of partook. So the Europeans also took from the Arabs and the Africans. So I always say, black people did sell other black people, just call a spade, and they sold some to the Arabs. The Arabs were black, and they could have also been pale-skinned Arabs too. Then the early Europeans could have been black too, and they could have been some pale-skinned Europeans. I mean, where you think these white people learned how to do their thing from? They learned it from black people. So just got to call a spade at the end of the day. They might have took it to a different level, you know what I mean? Because if the black person were to breed with the woman, then love makes the white race extinct, in case you didn't know. So therefore, the European white man might have took slavery to a whole different level, because if the world's ruled by love and everybody's interracing and intermingling and happy with each other and hugging and having babies and raising happy societies, white people disappear. Love will exterminate the white race. That's just a fact. And I don't believe in races. There's only one race, the human race. Human is all different colors. I believe races are Greys, Anunnakis, reptilians, Pleiadians. Those are races, shapeshifters. But in this case, for you layman's or you dumbed down people, race, as far as white people go in slavery, that's why slavery was so hard, as we know in America, at least, is because, the white man knew that these people cannot rule through love, because if they rule through love and where everybody loves each other, is happy, then through breeding and natural selection and of good living, white people become extinct, because, their bloodline disappears with a drop of black in it. So, yeah. So there's that. All right. So then we move on to the next thing that we have. You know what? Let's dive in and let's get a little bit of a good look at not the Atlantic slave trade. I don't want the Atlantic. Where is it? Here it is. We have the Arab slave trade. We'll look at a little bit of the Arab slave trade. And then we're going to go back and look at some of the, where is it? We'll just go to it right now. Let me find it real quick. I just had it. A lot of my stuff got disorganized. Okay, so here's this. So here's the forgotten Arab slave trade. All right, so we're going to go to this right here. So the forgotten Arab slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, had a devastating impact on Africa. And the effects to the continent to this day, and the fact that the Arab slave trade took a terrible toll on millions of Africans, is often overlooked. Could you imagine building statues out of people like this, bruh? Who the hell makes statues like this? Trying to give a reminder for centuries to remember, like, this is what we did to your ass. Like, crazy, bruh. Crazy work, bruh. But how evil can you be to do this, bruh? Slave trade monument in Zanzibar, just to give you a friendly reminder of what we did to you. Not who you are, because that's not your history. Please remember, Zanzibar people, that's your history, but that's not who you are. You were better than that. From the 7th century on over 13 centuries, between 10 and 18 million Africans were trafficked through the Sahara and the Indian Ocean to the Arab world, mainly to the Arabian Peninsula, North Africa, and other parts of the Middle East. The effects of this trade continue to shape the geopolitical landscape today. Remember that word, political. That is what it is. It's political. Ain't nothing righteous, ain't nothing virtuous, ain't nothing moral about this. This is all about political landscape. This is all about whatever God that these people pursue. And it seems like the God that they pursue is Satan. That's how I look at it, because ain't no way that you do anything like this and just think that you're doing the right thing. Let's see. How long you been? Quit asking me these questions, Dusty Phoenix. I'm busy right now. Just pay attention to the show. So as you can see, this is all a political thing. This is for political. This wasn't for a betterment of humanity. This was a political thing, which is what we see going on today with, immigration, with the stock markets. All of this is all political. This ain't got nothing to do with betterment of nothing. It is all planned. It is all organized. It is a system ran in a particular way, which, and then you could say geopolitical system. You could just say system, the system that's still being ran today. All right. Whereas the transatlantic slave trade primarily targeted the west coast of Africa, much older Arab slave trade operated on the east coast and the trans-Sahara routes. The European colonial powers were aware of the existing Arab trade networks, integrated them into their colonial strategies. The colonial borders and political units in Africa were influenced by existing trade routes and a regional power dynamics shaped by the slave trade. The displacement of millions of Africans led to a significant population decline in several regions. Displacement. They was just putting people all over the place. And then people from East and Central Africa were transported across the Indian Ocean and had to endure appalling conditions. Now, pay attention to this. Right now, don't we see a displacement of millions of people in general? We see a displacement of millions of people in general. People are immigrating here and migrating there, here and breeding over here and coming here. The cultures are getting mixed up, but then when you mix the cultures up, what ends up happening is the culture gets lost and it gets watered down into religion. You know, you have to, you got to fall under a category. You're going to be a Christian, you're going to be a Muslim, or you're going to be a, Judaism. You know what I mean? Like, the cultures end up falling into categories of religion, and then the religion ends up being the dominant slave master of the people who are migrating all over the place. In the meantime, populations declined because of it. Populations declined in several regions because of it. So there's a population decline. So it's like a slick way of depopulating the world, which is crazy. Which, in a sense, population or reproduction should be guided wisely. I do agree with the Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones said that population should be, or reproduction should be, guided wisely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Leave room for nature is what it tells you to do, and try to live a harmonious lifestyle existing amongst each other. However, we live in a geopolitical system, a political system that does not call for that. So you have to find a way to do that on your own. And the only way to do that is to make a lot of money and just kind of separate yourself from the rest of the pack. So we say people from East and Central Africa were transported across the Indian Ocean and had to endure appalling conditions, unfortunately. For many slaves, the journey began in Zanzibar. The archipelago in present day Tanzania became a central hub in the trade in the slave trade network that connected East Africa with the Middle East and the Persian Gulf. Islands were under the rule of the Omani Sultan family from the end of the 17th century until their independence in 1963. Good Lord. Zanzibar was not only a center for the slave trade, but also for a range of commodities such as cloves and ivory. There it is. They needed this. Always follow the money, which were transported from here to various parts of the Arab world. Always, this is what it was. They wanted to, Zanzibar was the center for the range of commodities. Zanzibar had cloves and ivory. They had nature. They had something that nature produced. Always look at this is a core pivotal thing in everything you will study when it comes to history, slavery, potentially religion, but you'll see this every single time. Every single time. You'll always find out that people who are living and worshiping and respecting the land as animists, I would say. They were animists because they respected the land, kind of like the Hopi prophecy, kind of like the movie Avatar with the blue people. The blue people respected the land. And, you know, they were appreciative of the trees, the water, the rocks, the earth, all that stuff. They appreciated the land. They lived on the land. They had stuff. The land gave them what they needed. They barely wore any clothes because they didn't really need clothes because the way they lived, their civilization was just set up the way they thrived. Well, of course, all of a sudden you have some kind of conqueror or some devil come over, regardless of what they look like. They could look like any kind of devil. The devil wears a bunch of clothes. I mean, he even wears Prada. They come in and what do? They find a resource in nature that they like, and they take the nature resource and they sell it for money and profits instead of everybody just enjoying it like they already was before these demons got there. They turn nature into a commodity. It wasn't a commodity until these fuckers showed up. It was just there. It was just a resource for people to use and enjoy, like sugarcane, like cloves and ivory, like rubber, all these different things, like gold and all these things. They were all just resources precious to people to use and enjoy. Some dickhead comes over and decides, hey, we can turn this to a commodity. I could sell these to people over here, become a rich person, and make a lot of money. That's always the pivotal point. You always realize that these people who are already living on an island, on a piece of land, somewhere where they were living, they were already living a good existence, enjoying the resources. The resources became resources. They became a commodity because these people came over and decided to turn it into it and figured they could sell it. That is a common theme you will constantly figure out. That's why commodity markets exist. Commodity markets exist because somebody came over and looked at the resource of that particular land and saw it as a commodity to sell, to gain profit off of, instead of everybody just enjoying it. When everybody was just enjoying it, it was a problem. When somebody could profit off of it, it became a thing. The journey through the Sahara Desert was an alternative route from slaves from different regions. It could take months. Here too, the conditions were brutal. Heat, lack of water, malnutrition took their toll. Damn, sounds like we're living that right now. It estimated up to 50% of the slaves died before reaching their destination. The transatlantic trade was primarily looking for strong men to work on farms and ranches, while Arab traders focused on capturing women and girls for concubinage and sexual exploitation in harems. Oh boy. Wow. And you know what's funny? These your same people that's voting for the Democratic Liberal Party. These your same people voting for the Democratic Liberal Party. You think they mindset has changed? No, they about to go back and be straight sexual deviants to the very women that are helping them get in the power. Boy, I tell you, these women are stupid. Anyway, the demand for female slaves was high enough for traders to charge high prices, with the ratio of captured women to men being 3 to 1. 3 women to 1 man. Boy, women, y'all put yourselves in a pickle, because this is about to get grimy out here. A particularly brutal aspect of the Arab slave trade was the castration of male slaves. Good Lord. Especially those who served as palace guards or soldiers, I told you, in order to render them incapable of reproducing. They don't want them to have sex with the queen or any of they women, because they know they probably got like they got little pee-pees, and you know the insecurity is at all-time high. Castrated men were considered more reliable and less susceptible to rival claims to power, because you destroy you cut off their testosterone and traumatize the shit out of them. Of course. I mean, you got to be an evil person to think this through. This is nothing moral or virtuous or nothing. And if this is what Muhammad approves, this is what your great Muhammad approves. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Economic and social impacts. The economic conquest. And remember, this entire time, this is about religion. This whole thing is about religion. This whole slave trade. This is all religion based, by the way. All religion based. Even some of you Christians can be thrown in here too. So I'm not going to sit here and like say one is good and one is bad. And some of y'all can be thrown in here, because I can read you some books and I can show you some without sanctuary videos and show you that after church or before church, you know, these people would kill and beat black people and then turn around and have a picnic and eating black people parts and burning men and burning black men and taking their parts of their body. But that's a story for another day. Economic and social impacts. The economic consequences of the Arab slave trade were far-reaching and continue to have an impact in the affected region until today. Zanzibar is a good example. About to butcher this word. The archipelago initially benefited from the exploitation of slave labor. However, the long-term effects of the trade made Zanzibar economically dependent on slave trade or slave labor and the associated industries, for example, clove plantation. Even after the abolition of the slave trade, Zanzibar economic structure remained partly dependent on the plantation economy, which hindered broader economic development. They just want a slave economy. That's all they want. They just want slaves. That's what they believe in. They believe in a slave economy. Like, I understand providing jobs for other people, but to have a slave labor economy, I mean, to me, if we could just see the if we could just see the shape-shifting demon through these people, between these races, these little, these little demons that have to hide, because you cannot be stronger than who you're trying to enslave if you have to shape-shift and hide yourself inside of a human clone or a human body. If you got to clone a human to hide who you are because you can't handle the person head up because bro will kill you, then you're clearly weak. But they don't got the balls to come out and say it, because you remember there was a story in the Bible. Let me say this real quick. There was a story in the Bible. I can't remember who it was. I'm gonna get it wrong. I always say Lazarus. I don't know. There was a story in the Bible where a person who had a bunch of demons inside of them, and they said, "We are legion, we are many," and then somehow, whenever the demons got cast out of that one person, there were demons, whatever you want to call it, there were thousands of these things, these demons or these reptilian shapeshifters, whatever the hell you want to call them. There were thousands of them in one man. One. It was thousands of them in just one. Thousands in one. That just show you how weak these bastards are. So these very things could still be in power today. Well, they probably are, because just look at the actions. There's no way humans feel this way towards each other. In other parts of East Africa, the loss of a large part of the labor force meant that agriculture, production, and trade were impaired, a consequence that was even more pronounced in West Africa as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Slave trade also had a profound impact on social structure and cultural practice in the affected regions. The capture and enslavement of large numbers of people led to the breakdown of traditional family structure. And in East Africa, the abduction of young men and women tore apart family ties and impaired social cohesion. Now, we see that now, but they do it a different way. They're not abducting, but they're using social media, and it's tearing the family ties apart by impaired social cohesion. So it's the same move, but instead it's not physical. They're using it with social media and choice. You got the cell phones and the social media, and then the psychological warfare of the strong and independent. Instead of women being strong and feminine, they're strong and masculine, and then you have two masculine genders colliding with each other, and now the woman doesn't know what to do. They're confused because they stepped out of the role of nature, but selling vagina seems to be a good way to go, so they do it because it makes money, and money is all that they worship. So therefore, and eventually, concubinage and whoredom is where it's going to lead them to. But hey, men ain't gonna complain too much about that, because hey, why buy the milk when you can get the cow for free? In West Africa, the constant threat of raids to round up more slaves created a fear and instability that eroded societies. The influx of enslaved Africans into the Arab world led to a blending of cultures, but also to a marginalization of African cultural practices. Enslaved Africans were often forced to give up their cultural identity. There it is. Enslaved Africans forced to give up their cultural identity. Exactly. This is it. The culture dies and religion proceeds. Their descendants were assimilated into the new cultural context they lived in, which is religion. That's what that is. They assimilated them and took away the culture and turned around and forced them into religion. Good old Muhammad, the guy who had a revelation from who knows. He believes it was an angel, but the way the actions proceed, it sounds like it was a demon. And then, he goes in and does a political conquest. I'm like, when has God been political? But hey, I digress. So the God that Muhammad believes in does a political conquest on people. He tells him to marry a 6-year-old girl, have sex with her at 9, and then also never give her a child. So she runs around childless for the rest of her life. And then on top of that, he goes to a political conquest and destroying cultures and killing people in the name of God, of Allah. And then there's no more culture. It's all political. Destroy cultures. You're no different than in the movie Avatar with the blue people. Muhammad is no different than the white people in the movie Avatar that came and destroyed the civilizations of the avatars. It's the same context. Ain't nothing different. They just wearing different clothes. Same context, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. There's no different. All right, so let's see. One thing I did want to get into, it was this. We had read on this. We read on the Treaty of what was that? What was that little treaty that they talked about? They gave a little grace period, a treaty of Bahak or Barak or something, a Bahak. Let's read on this treaty real quick. I want to go over this really fast. We'll probably do this just for like one paragraph. I don't want to go on. So this is the treaty that I guess gave some leeway. It gave some breathing room, I would say. Some breathing room so, you know, people couldn't fight or war over things. So we're going to look at this treaty of Bak. I can't say it. B-A-Q-T, Bak or whatever. It seems like it was a treaty that was good for about 6 or 7 centuries, but let's just take a quick look at it and just run this through real quick. The Bak was a treaty negotiated in 652 between the Christian kingdom of Macaria and in Nubia and the Abdallah, these fucking names, the Umayyad governor of Egypt, establishing mutual non-aggression, related tribute, and commercial exchange between the two realms. All right, so that's what it was. They established non-aggression, related tribute, and commercial exchange between the two realms. Realms. They use the word realms. Interesting. Realms is the word that they use. This agreement forged after unsuccessful Arab military expeditions against the Macareas or the Macareas fortified positions and skilled archers, stipulated that Nubians deliver an annual tribute of approximately 360 slaves, captured war captives, or raiders to Egypt's authorities at Aswan in return for Egyptian provisions, including 400 jars of wine, various textiles, and other goods for equivalent value. It further guarantees safe passage for travelers and merchants across borders, prohibited raids into each other's territories, and facilitated unrestricted trade, thereby averting conquest and enabling coexistence despite religious differences. These are the people that right here. Unsuccessful Arab military expeditions. That's the problem. Religious expeditions. Everything is a religious expedition. It seemed like the Christian kingdom of Macaria in Nubia was the one trying to cause peace, while these damn Arabs were constantly trying to conquer and conquest and force people under their religion. That's really it. I ain't got to go no further than that. The proof is in the pudding. It's the same shit over and over and over and over and over. Religion, conquer, conquest, enslave. Religion, conquer, conquest, enslave. Force you under their religion. That's what this is over and over again. Oh, wait, hold on. What do you have? You got, look what we find out. In return for Egyptian provision, because remember, Abdallah was the Umayyad governor of Egypt. So in order to get his provision, it includes 400 jars of wine, various textile and other goods equivalent of value. So in other words, resources. They go over there, they take nature and they turn nature into a commodity. If that shit ain't evil, I don't know what is. And anybody that does it, I don't care, Christian, Judea, whatever. But from what we're looking at right here, seems like the common the common denominator in this case is Islamic. But I mean, of course, the Christians did it too. Trust me, I know my American history, so you ain't got to tell me. I live it. And before we go in, we're gonna dive in to the Atlantic slave trade. So we'll dive into this. Did I do the Sahara slave trade? I think I did. It was the Arab slave trade, right? The trans-Sahara slave trade, yeah. Slave trade from Muslims across Sahara. Yeah, so I read that one first, so we're good. All right, so here we go. Just so you won't feel like I'm picking on one side, quick history lesson. Atlantic slave trade, or the transatlantic slave trade, involved transportation by slave traders of enslaved African people to America. This trade was operated by slave ships, both Europe and the New World. But remember, there was already people in America before this happened. Black people did not just come from Africa through this slave trade. There were already people here. There were natives here. That's why you have a certain demographic of people that can't get deported. Now they're trying to change that over now and wash that over. So now that these other immigrants come over here and they can have babies here, and you don't have to have any papers, as long as you can have sex, impregnate somebody, and throw a baby in the hospital and got papers for them. Now you can try to turn around and say that you can't get deported in the future. That's what they're trying to do, to water down the indigenous people who have the history of here in America who can't get deported now. But I digress. Some of these voyages used triangular trade routes in its middle passage. Particularly in the early phases, the European established a coastal slave trade in the 15th century, and the trade to the Americas began in the 16th century, lasting through the 19th. The vast majority of those who were transported to in the transatlantic slave trade were from the Central Africa and West Africa. So as we see, the Atlantic slave trade, like I just showed you, the Europeans got some of their slaves from Africans and Arabs. So they were all working together. This is all one big cohesive unit. So we can clearly sum it up. You know, you had Africans, Jews, Arabs, and whites or Europeans, Christians, whatever you want to call them. They were all doing the same thing, and they beat these people's culture out of them, because these people already had a culture before these religions showed up. Keep that in mind. They already had a culture before religion showed up and stole their resources and called them commodities. They were already a people of a land. Religion came in and destroyed them and conquered them and took them over. They were already a people with land and resources. Then the resources got taken from them and they turned it into commodities, which then sold for profits to other, demons that were all a part of the same thing. And all these demons just go by different names and different looks. I'll just say they just shapeshifted into different bodies and different gears and should confuse people into who they were. But in reality, they were all the same demon if you look inside and see what they shapeshifted into. It's just a different race into a human's body, shapeshifted, and then just cause a hell of a slave trade on humans, which they use them for lust. They drink their blood, they eat their babies, they rape their women. That's all that is. It's just a shape-shifting demon that is doing that to the human race. But, the race that is secretly pretending to be, or the secret race that it really is, could be a reptilian, a gray, a Pleiadian, an Anunnaki, a Nordic, or whatever the case may be. That's really what it is. Because why was there peace before that? Why was the people on the Americas chilling? Why was the people in Zanzibar and Tanzania chilling? Why was the Africans chilling? Why wasn't no issue in beef in Europe? Everybody was chilling. And everybody was chilling because pyramids were everywhere. How the hell you build a pyramid on that side of on the west side of the world, and we see the same pyramid on the east side of the world? Everybody was in agreement. Everybody was chilling. There was peace. That's why we still see these things, my humble opinion, I think. Everybody was in accordance. Everybody was in agreement. All of a sudden, the pyramids don't get used no more. They get used for profits and money. They're for tours now. Like, come on, bro. There was a peace that was going on before these demons showed up. That's all it is. And these demons showed up in the form of Africans, Arabs, Europeans, whatever the case may be, shapeshifted into these human bodies, took them over, came in and started eating humans and people and trying to destroy and depopulate and enslave the human race. That's all that's all that they're doing. That's it. Because there was peace before then. Everybody had their own culture on their land. They was chilling. Anyway, let's wrap this up. So it says, in the vast majority of those who transported there was from Central West Africa. In contrast to other slave trades, those taking slaves from Africa generally brought their cargo from West and Central African slave merchants. This applies to both Europeans in the transatlantic trade and to the Arab slave trade supplying their own markets. Whilst Europeans did get involved in some raiding, this was much less common and was usually discouraged. In general, the Portuguese built barracoons in their African slaving bases, in which to gather newly purchased captives ready for the next ship to arrive, though the Dutch established some forts as African bases, some of which were captured by the British for similar purposes. The usual approach by Northern European slave traders was to use this ship as a base into which to gather their cargo. This meant that these ships spent much longer on the African coast than Portuguese vessels, and the first slaves to be brought to endure. Okay, the New World, or the Americas, which, by the way, America was already here to begin with. A new world is just basically describing a system. Just remember that. When they say a new world, they call it the Americas. Indigenous people were already on the land of America. There were indigenous people all over the Americas. America was not new. It's been there. They just wasn't there. The new world they call is a system. The new world had, after Australia, a much lower population density than other inhabited continents. Yes, because they guided reproduction wisely. As opposed to you dudes or you demons sticking your Johnson in everything and raping and forcing people to have babies and spreading your demonic bloodline throughout the people. That's what it was. Any exploitation by the new discoveries of these lands needed a workforce, but the sparse indigenous population was reducing due to European diseases. Exactly. A lot of these people, yes, Europeans, Arabs, Africans, a lot of these fools, yeah, they were some dirty dick bastards too. Keep that in mind. Which they had no resistance. The demand for labor could not be met by Europeans. Of course it couldn't. And now they're trying to do it now, but it's not going to work. Who were particularly reluctant to immigrate at this early stage. The solution was the same as they used for sugar plantations of Madeira and the Canary Islands. Slaves brought Africa. Slaves were sold into America to work on coffee, tobacco, cocoa, sugar, and cotton plantation, gold and silver mines, rice fields, construction industries, cutting timber for ships as skilled labor and as a domestic service. Exactly. Resources. They turned resources into commodities. All these things have been here. People openly had tobacco, coffee, coca, sugar, cotton, silver, gold, rice. People had that willy-nilly. Everybody had that. It was nothing new. It was resources that was giving to the earth. All you had to do was guide reproduction wisely, like the Georgia Guidestones say. Let's read the Georgia Guidestones while I'm on this. Let me pull this up. All you had to do was do what the Georgia Guidestones say, which is what I think they were doing in a sense. They were basically just guiding reproduction wisely. They were doing what they were supposed to do. Right here. This is what the indigenous people were doing. They were maintaining humanity, maybe not under 500 million, but they were maintaining humanity in perpetual balance with nature. They guided reproduction wisely. They probably improved fitness and diversity. They unite humanity, with a living language. I ain't gonna say new language. They ruled with passion, faith, and tradition, or culture, we should say. And they did all things with temporal reason. They protected people and nations with fair laws and just courts. I think that they were already doing this in a sense. They avoided petty laws and useless officials. They let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes. And I don't know about this part, but I'll say that they were, in a sense, using some of these similarities with the Georgia Guidestones. They balance personal rights with social duties or whatever. Prize beauty, love, and seeking harmony with the infinite. Yes, that's what they did. They were not a cancer on the earth. They left room for nature. That's what they did. So the people who were here already were, in a sense, practicing this already. They were living in harmony with nature. They were already staying in harmony with nature. They were living in balance with nature. It was simple. They were living a balanced, harmonious life. When people come over and start raping and pillaging, and you're sticking babies into like 15 different women, and they're having your bloodline, your child, you know what I mean? It's like, come on. It's easy to tell what's happening. You can easily put together what was going on. These demons were just populating their seed all over the place, going against nature in every capacity that they could. They were not guiding reproduction wisely. That's what families were for. That's why all these cultures and all these different people in different tribes, they already had cultures and families. Did they fight? Yes, they fought and probably conquered other. Yes, that probably happened. It is what it is. But what I'm saying is, in the most sense, when you look at the resources that each one had, they probably were able to trade healthily amongst people, probably even shared until, at some point, the spirit of some demon, the spirit of Cain, came across and, just decided, or some shape-shifting demon went inside of a dude, some reptilian or some shape-shifting race went inside of a human, went across and started conquering other humans and was like, I can eat these humans. I can drink their blood. I can eat their kids. I can thrive off of their negative energy. They loosh. That's what they thrive on. because they're not the same race as humans. Humans thrive off of the land, the resources, the earth, the sunlight. These other races of demons, as you can tell how some people react, the earth's elements are detrimental to them. You know, there are restaurants that serve human bodies. There's restaurants in the United States and probably across the world that serve human body parts. You can find it. Just look. It's not hard to find. Just look. And we know this from the Epstein files, how far these people will go to do the most evilest of things. They cannot be humans. There's no way you're a human doing that. You have to be a different race, shape-shifted into a human body. That's my opinion. There's no way you can vouch for that. Like, why would humans have an earth with resources? They can trade and live peacefully, have sex, have babies, raise kids, not have to worry about no bills, build their own homes and build their own homes, live a peaceful lifestyle, raise kids, watch kids run around, have more sex, have more babies, have resources, trade with other people with different resources that they have. And then out of nowhere, somebody comes over and turns the resources into a commodity and it starts raping women and having concubines and putting 16 babies into 50 different women. Like, it's easy when you just think about it. It's like, clearly there is a different species amongst us. There's no other way. There's a different species amongst us. All right. So then we have, let's see, how long did this go on for? So we got the, so we know how long the Atlantic slave trade went on for. I mean, they say like 400 years or something like that, but it's still going on till this day. It's still happening till this day. It hasn't stopped. Let's read this last part before I wrap this part up. The major Atlantic slave trade nations in order of a trade volume were Portugal, Britain, Spain, France, Netherlands, and the United States, and Denmark. Denmark, huh? Several had established outposts on the African coast where they purchased slaves from local African leaders. The largest slave trading ports were in South America, and the New World-based ships probably carrying more enslaved people from Africa and those traveling in ships with a home port in Europe. And here's the question. When they got to South America, you think South America was just a big blot of land with nobody on it? No. South America was not a big blot of land with nobody on it. North America was not a big blot of land. Mexico was not a big blot of land with nobody on it. Canada was not a big blot of land with nobody on it. There were already people here. There are already people here. Think about it. There were already people here. And they just came in and just displaced and destroyed the bloodlines of the people that were here. They destroyed the culture. They turned the culture into a religion. They turned the resources into commodities. They turned the bloodlines, and they just raped and destroyed the bloodlines that were inside of these people. They turned around and started categorizing people by race and color. That's all it is. This is a demonic reptilian spirit, or Anunnaki gray, whatever the hell you want to call it, spirit, shape-shifting. That's all that is, because nothing else makes more sense. Of these, let's see, the current estimate is that they brought about over 12.5 million African slaves loaded onto ships in Africa and transported them to the Americas. Of these, up to 2 million died during the voyage. Many others died as a result of slave raids, wars, and during transport to the coast for sale of European slave trade. Near the beginning of the 19th century, various governments acted to ban the trade. Yeah, although illegal smuggling still occurred. Sounds like this was going on to this day. It generally thought that the transatlantic slave trade ended in 1867, but the evidence was later found that the voyages lasted until 1873. But that's happening today with immigrants and migration. I mean, the immigrants and migration to me is like another version of slave trade. It's just done in a different way. It's just done in a different way. It's like, you know, we're not gonna trade slaves. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have your people come over here and populate, and then when they populate, we'll give them birthright citizenships. They don't have to be documented. We'll just do a slave trade, but it's in a different way. We're gonna trade you your slaves on the east, and we're gonna bring your immigrants and migrants over here to the west. We're doing a slave trade, but we're not forcing them. We're allowing them. And then when they come over here and document it and have babies, then we'll just give them birthright citizenship. Slave trade. It's the same thing. They ain't changed it. It just looks different. It's the same thing. And who's leading the conquest? Religion, Islamic, Judaism, or Jewish, or the you-know-who-ish, I should say. And then the Christians who sell out of I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Ain't nothing changed. It's clear as day. While the transatlantic slave trade was the largest forced migration, the Arab Muslim slave trade is recognized as the longest in history, allegedly, spanning over 1,300 years from 7th century until the 20th mid-century. Other remarkably enduring systems include the Indian Ocean, which operated nearly 4,000 years, and an unbroken chain of slavery in Korea that lasted for 1,400 years. So we got the Korean slave trade as well, in case you didn't know about that one. Korea had a slave trade too, lasting over 1,400 years, longer than the Arab Muslim slave trade. Think about that. Slave trade been going on for a long time. And we're still seeing it till this day. It just looks different. The only difference is they're not forcing women. They're not forcing women into concubinage. Well, how do you say this? Because, you know, women believe they don't have a choice. That's how they operate. They're not forcing women into concubinage. They're like, hey, look how much money you can make. You know what I mean? Sell your body. Go get your titties done. Go get your booty done. Go get your fat sucked out of your body and placed in different orifices of your body. We'll give you a little apartment, give you a little home. I'm going to give you an apartment, give you a little rinky-dink car, you know, strong and independent, but it probably came from slobbing on some man's knob. And you live this luxury life, you know, you get the attention on social media and computers and stuff like that, but you're still a concubine. You know, now we have high-end concubines. The strong and independent woman theory, majority of it is just concubines. That's all it is. The women who are losing jobs, future concubines. The women who are winning, high-end concubines. There's a man funding it at some place and point. She has a bunch of businesses. Well, it took a man to get it. She was a concubine. She's on somebody's payroll. That's all it is. It's the same thing. It's just, it looks different, but it's the same concept. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Not one bit. It's just modern day. All of this forcing people into labor, forcing people into concubinage, taking resource. All of this it's the same game. It's just they removed the force and enabled the choice. That's all they did. They said, we ain't gonna force you no more. We're just gonna put you in a situation where you have to make a choice. You're probably not gonna like the choices, but you still have a choice. You wanna work and make your money? You want to concubine and make your money? Which one you want to do? Men, do you want to get married and have children in the West and deal with the family court system and the fact that the woman has an unconscionable contract against you that can just destroy you, and has social media that she looks at and that will, you know, easily manipulate her mind? Or do you just want to like live a nice harmonious lifestyle without dealing with women, and hopefully you make enough money to where you can, you know, be able to take care of them on your own whenever you have money at your leisure to be able to raise a family? You may not like the choice, but this choice is still there. It's the same concept, because it's up to you to further the bloodline. You got to further your bloodline. If you got that bloodline from Adam, you got to put it out into the world, or earth, I should say, and keep it going. They just want to make it hard for you because they don't want the bloodline of Adam, the seed of Adam, to keep on being dispersed. They trying to wash that shit out. They're like, no, we don't want that. We got to keep Adam's bloodline gone. It's a choice. It's a choice. That's all it is. Just modern day slavery. So as you see, the slaving hasn't gone on. Now let's take a look at, let me see, where's the Korean thing? We'll find the Korean thing real quick. I found this, and I did see this. I thought this was rather stupid. It's kind of sad. This guy made himself look like an idiot when they talked about this. Let me find this real quick. Let's look at the slave trade thingy.
Some society.
All right, here we go. Is this it? Let me see if I can find it real quick.
You don't think Asian?
No.
Each other, right?
Are you fucking out of your?
All right, here we go. I think this is it.
Each other, right?
Are you fucking?
All right. All right. Anyway, I'm going to show you this video that's going to talk about a Korean slave trade. This guy, basically, this Korean dude, he's a comedian, and they're probably just they're probably just joking, but just listen to what they say about the Korean slave trade. The Korean says that they didn't have slaves in Korea. They didn't slave people in Korea, and the white guy comes in and kind of hits them with a reality check. So let's watch this. Here we go.
Each other, right?
Are you fucking out of your
Yeah,
mind?
what the fuck?
What do you mean?
You don't think Asians had fucking? They didn't oppress.
Koreans didn't have slaves. We didn't fly.
Did Koreans have slaves?
Yeah, Google that.
Yeah, because I think that's fucking wrong.
Somebody built them pyramids. It wasn't just somebody like, we're going to...
Yeah,
Korea had the longest unbroken chain. Korea had the longest unbroken chain of slavery of any society in history, spanning 1,500 years. Fuck off.
That's not what it says. Zoom it in. My eyes are blurry.
Go
Zoom
back,
it in. Go
Carlos.
back. I want to read it. All right.
Read it out loud, you
I wanna-
piece
you
of
fucking-
shit.
Get close. All right. Korea had the longest unbroken chain of slavery of any society in history. Fuck. Holy shit.
Each other, right?
Are you fucking out?
Potty mouth. But as you can see, it happens. And it's just, it's all for the same thing. It's all to defy nature, turn nature's resources into commodities, to enslave the human population, to spread religion, and to destroy the culture of the indigenous people of the land, and to destroy the bloodline of the seed, in my opinion, of Adam to pursue. That's all it is. That's how I see it. Now let's take a look at, let me see if I have it. I think this is let me hit mute because I don't want this to play out too much. They're going to talk about the system. Here it is. All right, so we're going to talk about this. So we have the system. It says the kafala system. All right, we're going to take a look at a video that's going to talk about the kafala system. And let me see. There's another one I want to go to after this. Let me see if I can double up on this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I want to double up. I don't want to pause too much whenever I do this. Let me see if I can find it. Where are you, sir? There you are. All right, cool. So we're gonna double up on this. We're gonna do the old 2-for-1. We're gonna do the old 2-for-1. We'll hit him with a 2-for on this one. All right, let me just double this up real quick. Let me get this situated. We're about to get it right. Give me 2 seconds, 2 more seconds. We're gonna get this thing right. All right, here we go. We're good to go. We're good to go. So we're gonna look at the kafala system, whatever the kafala system is. And we're going to have somebody break it down. Then we're going to have Dr. Umar and then have a lady break down basically in real time on how it works. So here we go. Let's just not waste no more time. Let's get into this because it's hot as hell. I ain't got much time because no AC is working. So we got to get this fixed as well. All right. So here we go. Let's take a look at what this system is and see if it holds weight till today. Here we go.
They rebranded it. The Arab slave trade today hides behind a legal name, the kafala system. A migrant worker arrives in a Gulf country chasing opportunity. The instant they land, their employer owns their visa, their movement, their right to leave. Can't change jobs without permission, can't exit without approval. Run, you're illegal. Speak up, deportation. Right now, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, Jordan, Lebanon. 40 million people trapped inside it. The conditions are documented. Passports seized, wages stolen, workers confined, beatings, sexual violence, 16-hour shifts, no minimum wage, no labor protection. Then there's Qatar. In 2010, they won the right to host the FIFA World Cup. $200 billion in stadiums built on kafala labor. Their own World Cup chief admitted
400 to 500 workers died.
Human rights groups say thousands. Death certificates, cardiac failure, no autopsy, case closed. Saudi Arabia scrapped kafala in 2025, freeing 13 million workers on paper. Abuse continues. Domestic workers still excluded. Lebanon and Qatar unchanged. Legalized, government-sanctioned, documented. 40 million people. Please subscribe and follow.
You see what they did there? Do you see what they did there? Watch this.
Workers on paper. Abuse continues.
Look how they make marriage look. They talked about all that messed up shit. They talked about all the brutal legal systems, how the migrants come over and get slapped into a slavery system of legal slavery that has never changed from ancient times, like I've told you. And then they show you marriage. Look how they make marriage look between the people. Look how they make marriage look between the people. The woman's got her head down, washing dishes quietly while the man is barking at her and terrorizing her. And she's just a slave inside the household. Now, this may be true in some Islamic countries. I'll go ahead and call a spade because, you know, this is how Muhammad probably treated his women. So when you follow Muhammad, there's a good chance if you're an Islamic terrorist, this is how you're going to treat your woman. So this might be true for those people, unfortunately. But when you talk about all this, your employer owns your visa, your employer owns your movement, your right to leave, you can't change jobs without permission, all this stuff, you can't exit without approval, your employer is slaving you legally. And if you speak up about deportation, you know, all that stuff goes on. And then you add all that and you put an AI system on top of that tracks your every move and every single dollar and coin you spend with cashless society. Look at this. This literally is showing you that a corporation will enslave you. And women are vouching for this for sure. And they're going against family. And as you see, when they show everybody without jobs, you see a list of women here. You see it's like a dude down there, but mostly women here with no minimum wage, no labor protection. They said that they built this $200 billion stadium. 400 or 500 employees died. Whether it's true or not doesn't change the fact that they did build that damn stadium. That's true. And they didn't have no human rights. They, you know, the death certificate or whatever. Nobody cared who died while building this $200 billion thing. But the $200 billion could have went to the people who built it. But instead, they slave labored them out. So it's showing you all of this, that these evil monstrosities that these people do, right? They show you this. You know what I mean? And, you know, once again, you got your Islamic political people. And if you look at these colors of these flags, you match these colors of these flags, and then you go read about the horses, the color of the horses in the book of Revelations, you'll find some striking, eerie similarities. If you ever want to know, if you ever look at these color, these flags from these Islamic people, and then look at the book of Revelations and realize that the horses that are the same color as they flag, but, you know, maybe God made a mistake when he was talking about that. Maybe, you know, because according to Islamic people, the Bible was corrupted, you know. So I guess in the book of Revelation, you can't tamper with the book of Revelations. But, you know, according to Islamic people, the Bible was corrupted. So, you know, they miscolored the horses in Revelations. But anyway, let me keep going. So you get through, you look at all this evilness that these people do, and then you get here. You get to marriage, and look how they make marriage look. Golly, boy, it's crazy. A woman with her head down washing dishes. And again, unfortunately, this could be true in some marriage households and some religious aspects. This is how some religions treat, you know, they woman. I get it. I understand it. But I mean, they just couldn't have made it look any worse. But anyway, I digress. So there's that. So as we see here, the kafala system, which is the same system that's been around since forever, they just updated it. It didn't change. It just got updated to a new look. They just rebranded it to a legal look. Let's just run through it one more time.
They didn't end it. They rebranded it. The Arab slave trade today hides behind a legal name, the kafala system. A migrant worker arrives in a Gulf country chasing opportunity. The instant they land, their employer owns their visa, their movement, their right to leave. Can't change jobs without permission, can't exit without approval. Run, you're illegal. Speak up, deportation. Right now, Qatar...
And it's like, a common theme is like you got melanated people, and this could be. I mean, well, I'm just gonna say this, and as you can see, the way they made this video, in context, how they made the video, melanated people majority, and then you have the pale skinned people enslaving them. Then you got some pale skinned people being enslaved along with melanated people. So then they just mushed up all the people at some point and just said we're gonna enslave everybody. But the melanated people, of course, get it the worst. The pale skin, the pale skin people are still the enslavers. There's very few melanated people that are going to be doing the enslaving. It's crazy when you can see this. It's clear as day. Now, speaking on colors, let's listen to how this woman breaks this down. She's going to break this down. It's going to start with Dr. Umar, but then it's going to get passed over to a lady. She's going to speak on real life, how this stuff goes down and how they see people with because of their race that I don't believe exists. Race exists when you got Anunnakis and Greys and reptilians shapeshifting and being pussies and can't come out and show their face because they know we'll kill them. But let's go ahead and show the video. So here we go. Let's go ahead and show this.
Slave trade and the European slave trade, the Arab slave trade never ended. The Arab slave trade is going on right now.
They literally think dark skin is intended to serve. This is the mentality and what I learned after all these conversations. I'm like, so this is your lens. You think these women should be able to have other jobs? They're like, if they're madame, let's them. I'm like, what the is a madame? Like, you bought a person. And the more I travel and I talk about all these enslaved systems, the more I realize like the only thing holding this up is paperwork and our silence.
They hold passports, right?
Here's what they tell them. You sign up with a company. By the way, these companies are public. Saudi Arabia introduced this program. So it's all over the Gulf countries and it's all over Lebanon as well. Egypt, definitely in all these countries. The intent was to provide opportunities for Africans.
Right.
And they say they will give you a job starting at 500. They say you will have a room. You're promised and given amenities and human rights initially. And the minute you land, they're being herded like sheep. I hate to say that. By the way, at the airport, I was like, I'm gonna go stand with the black women. And the guy's like, hey. And I wasn't even allowed to stand next to them. So they're not allowed to engage with the public. They're not allowed to look up. They're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to this. And everybody around is like, this is the way it is.
Now, the difference between the Arab slave trade and the European slave trade is the Arab slave trade never ended.
All right, so what she just described right here is, number one, the immigration into the Eastern world over to the Western world. When they bring the Eastern world to the Western world, they bring these people who they have enslaved and indoctrinated over here. Then they give them the birthright citizenship to be undocumented, to be able to vote, and to be able to have babies. And then also their babies become documented citizens. Then on top of that, they treat them like this.
Say they will give you a job starting at 500. They say you will have a room. You're promised and given amenities and human rights initially. And the minute you land, they're being herded like sheep. I hate to say that. By the way,
so then they're being treated and herded like sheep, which I showed you how they do it when it comes to voting. I showed you a video. I even put a short on it that showed the guy who was I forgot what he was. He was like a clerk of some city in Hamtramck, Michigan or whatever, which is an all Islamic city now. How they do the voter fraud, how they go knock on the door, make people vote for who they want to vote for. If they don't do it, then they'll basically say your cousin or whoever's coming in, they won't have a place to stay. They'll be stuck and be in a horrible place wherever they stay. So then they shift the votes of the people when they come over here. They get migrated, immigrated by basically threatening their livelihood of not having nowhere to live, so they're forced to vote for a particular candidate. So then that's how they get the votes, by bringing their slave people who they treat like trash over here and continue to treat them like trash, and then use them by having children and then birthing their children into a slave system, which then primes the country for a universal basic income AI takeover. That's what that does. Clear as day. Revelations 13. All day long. Easy work. Easy work, bruh. Easy work. Easy work. Revelations 13. Easy work, bruh. Easy. All day, all night. Is it 13 or 14? Let's see. Dragon stood, breath of the mouth, honor the beast, number the same. It's preferred great signs coming down because it's given power. Because of the signs, it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded. The second beast was given the power to give breath to image the first beast. So the second beast was given the power to give image to the to give voice and image to the first beast, which now the first beast will be an AI image. If so, the image could speak and cause all who refuse to worship the image to be killed. So this is it. This is an AI system. This is an AI system. The second beast, which is these demon ass race of fake humans or whatever, shapeshifted humans, they're giving power and breath. They're giving breath, meaning words, and image, which is an image. They're gonna do that with AI. And the image of that is going to be able to speak and cause who refuse to worship the image to be killed. So it's going to be an AI system that's going to force everybody to worship the first beast that was wounded. This is the first beast. It's going to force all people, great, small, rich, poor, free, and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or forehead, or whatever you want to call it, so that they could not buy or sell unless they have the mark. So the mark is probably going to be whatever religion that is going to be the dominant force. And that religion is going to be Satanism, feminism, in this case, whatever regime is on top. It's simple. It's an AI system. They're implementing an AI system. This is what she's talking about. Where'd she go? I lost her. There she go. This is what she's saying. She's saying that they're basically implementing a system. And all that stuff, $500. What the hell does $500 do for you in today's world? You come over to America with $500, bro, you cooked. You cooked. You ain't gonna do shit with $500. They already know that you're setting you up for failure, but you don't know any better because you're coming from where you're coming from. You don't know the prices over here until you get here. I don't know the prices in other countries. And I have a better chance to find out prices because I have access to a computer, thank God. They probably don't. They don't know. And if they do, I mean, hey, it's better than where they are for the ones that they bring over. Then you bring them over, and then you then you have to dumb down the education system to make the kids dumber because you got to lower the education. And if you lower the education and then bring the kids up to that education, it's better than what they had anyway, even though the education system is lower. So you're going to have a society of dumber people. Easily. Easy work, bro. Easy work. Now let's take it to a modern day slavery position, which I've already segued myself into, but I got to keep on moving. I got to keep on moving because it's getting hot in here, and I'm trying not to get so passionate about what I say. And speaking of Islamic, let's hear what this dude has to say. I have to put this dude on the screen because he be preaching. Let me go ahead and put this dude on screen real quick. Let me run this imam over here. This imam finna drop some bars on y'all ass. Let me let this imam. Where are you? It's you. Where's the other one? I got to find the other one. I probably won't be. There he is. All right, here we go. We got two of them. We're going to let this first imam talk, or the UAE prime minister, or the UAE foreign minister. He's going to speak. And then we're going to let the other one speak. So let's hear what these two got to say. All right. Let's let these two drop some bars of wisdom on your ass. Here we go. Let's hear what they got to say. This was over 10 years ago. Let's see what he has to say. Let me largen that up. There we go.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
All right, so as you see, he was trying to break down what these people are. Now, we're going to let this other one speak. Discovered the intrinsic threat of the Muslim Brotherhood attack in 2003, who essentially are the Islamic arm of the global Freemasonry henchmen of the man of perdition. This UAE politician's warning is true. They are tasked in destabilizing Christian West. Once again, let's hear it come out of a Muslim's mouth about Islamists. Let's see what he says.
Game to take over these Western countries. Is that the long game for the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yes, there will come a point right now. I believe we're going to be in the time of action. The next step is action, which means they already recruited, especially after the 7th of October. It gave them enough place to recruit people and use that emotion grab on them. And then they went through the education system also. So now they have enough fund in terms of the charities that they use and the umbrella of the charities, and they have enough imams and they have enough recruitments. The next is action. They will carry out terrorist attacks. More terrorist attacks are coming to Australia, more coming to the United Kingdom. There will be terrorist attack. And you will go back into this interview that we're having to remind people, we did warn about this. It's not because we're very smart and clever about this, and it's because the Middle East understand these terrorists because we suffered from them.
You understand them better than anybody else?
Because we suffered from them, and we know how to counter them, and we stop them.
So, let's wrap. What's your...
She's a feminist. She a straight Satanist. She probably is a shape-shifting demon. The eyes don't lie. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'm going to stand on it.
Your message to Australia?
Ban the Muslim Brotherhood.
Message.
And we stop them.
So, let's wrap. What's your message to Australia?
Ban the Muslim Brotherhood. Do not tolerate people who do not tolerate you. And treat your country like your home. And treat the citizens like your children. Care about them. Future is really dark if you're going to allow these guys to be the elites, the Muslim Brotherhood to be the elites of your society. You have a great history. Protect your civilization. If I'm saying protect your civilization, this is a huge warning. A huge warning. And my hand is on my heart when I speak about Australia. I have visited Australia and I have seen the recent attack when it happens against the Jewish community. This is not what Australia is about. It's so diverse. It's so amazing.
All right, so they are trying to warn people, trying to tell people like, hey, yo, it's about to go down, son. So you might want to be prepared for what's coming. Let me see if I can find, let me see. Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? I'm trying to find this one more. I want to put an imam on here because just to show you how the slavery works. Because I have to get you to understand. Let's see. 30 years. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. This will be a short little one. So this is what they were talking about. You can't really hear him too well. The audio on this one is crap. I can't play that one. The audio is bad. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. All right, here we go. So this is what he was trying to tell people about, okay? This is what they're trying to tell you about the West and what's going on, what they already suffered from and how they figured to ban it, keep it away. This is what they're trying to tell you.
What we as Muslims want to implement here in the United States, we believe the Constitution should be replaced by the Quran.
First move that I will do, I will abolish the Constitution and I will establish the only logical and rational constitution, which is the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
When it comes to spreading Islam on a state level, on a societal level, that method prescribed is jihad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed that the ones who don't accept the ruling of Islam, they must be fought. This is simply the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
What we as Muslims want to implement here in the United States.
All right, so it's just clear as day. And he was basically just trying to tell you, he's a Muslim. And he's telling you like, yo, these ain't Muslims, bro. These are Islamic radicalist extremists, bro. These ain't the same as us. We are not the same. These niggas is lying. They posing. So now let's move on to what modern day slavery looks like. So let's take a look at the massive changes that have gone on to something that is going to affect a lot of people, called federal student loan debt. So we're going to look at the modern day slavery in a different form of how it's hitting people over here in America. And it's hitting people in many different forms. Debt is one of those things. While I would say get your ass out of debt, well, let's hear what this lady says it happens to student loans. So student loans is the big deal because a lot of people seem to have them. So here we go. Let's let her break this down. Here we go.
We're one of the 43 million Americans sitting on federal student loan debt, or if you are a high school or college student looking to take out a new federal student loan, everything just changed today because of the Republican-passed One Big Beautiful Bill. All of the federal student loan repayment programs we all knew are gone. So before I explain this complete overhaul, you should know if you currently have a federal student loan, meaning you took the loan out prior to July 1st, 2026, for a large group of you, you can keep your repayment plan. That includes the standard repayment plan, the graduated repayment plan, the extended repayment plan, the income-based repayment plan, the income contingent repayment plan, and the pay-as-you-earn plan. However, if you are in either the pay-as-you-earn plan or the income contingent repayment plan, by July 1st of 2028, those plans will also be gone. So you're going to have to switch into one of the two new repayment plans that the Republicans created in the Big Beautiful Bill, or you can try and qualify for the existing income-based repayment plan. And for the 7 million of you who are still enrolled in the SAVE income-driven repayment plan created by the Biden administration, by now you already know that as of today, that program also gone. You will be receiving a notice, if you haven't received it already, from the Department of Education saying that you are going to have 90 days from today to choose one of the two new repayment plans the Republicans created in the Big Beautiful Bill to repay that loan. Okay, so let's talk about these two new repayment plans.
All right, so this is implemented July 1st. So as you see, people got 90 days to change over and make sure that they pay back that student loan debt. Now, why is this important? Well, let's just figure this out. This should take us no time at all as to why this is so important. How much is the student loan debt in America? Well, let's figure this out real quick. Let's see how much money is in a student loan debt. And once we figure this out, we'll understand why they finna get this money out these student loan people. So all this education that you've been getting and never paying it back, let's just take a look. As of early 2026, student loan debt in the United States of these Americas, it says here, is estimated between 1.8 and 1.7 trillion dollars. With approximately 42 million to 44 million borrowers carrying a balance. Federal loan accounts for the vast majority of this debt, totaling roughly 1.6 trillion, while the private loan balance exceeds 140 billion. So the total of it is 1.6, well, let's say 1.7 trillion. And the private loan balance is 140 billion. So if you subtract 140 billion from 1.6 trillion, if my calculation serves me correctly, I could be wrong, you are still in the $1 trillion amounts that needs to be paid back. So therefore, it doesn't even matter. The median individual education debt is between $20,000 and $24,000, with recent national balance remaining relatively flat. All right. So in today's economy, in today's world, let's just ask this question. Let's just be honest. You know what? We ain't gonna ask that question yet. What we're gonna do is we're gonna let that lady continue talking. Let's let her finish up before we go there. Let's let her finish up. Here we go. So here's the two ways that you can set up your payment plans, is what she said. So here we go.
That were created in the Big Beautiful Bill. One is called the Tiered Standard Repayment Plan, and the other is called the Income-Driven Repayment Assistance Plan. The standard repayment plan offers fixed payment terms of 10, 15, 20, or 25 years based on the amount you borrowed.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is called a mortgage. That's called a mortgage. In case you are not familiar, that's called a mortgage. 10, 15, 20 to 25 year term based on your loan amount. That is a mortgage. They turned your student loan into mortgages. Golly. Let's see what the next one is.
Borrowers with higher loan balances qualify for longer repayment terms to try and help keep monthly payments more affordable. Now let's talk about the new repayment assistance plan. That's really the big one. It bases borrower payments on that borrower's income. Repayments range between 1 to 10% of the borrower's income, depending on how much they earn every year. Now, there are several things you need to know about this plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is called,
things you need to know.
That is called child support. That's called child support. All right. That's called child support. And let me just help you in case you don't know. Let me just help you. All right. Child support calculator. Let's just take a look. That's called child support. Here we go. In Texas, child support is calculated as a percentage of monthly net resources based on the number of children, ranging from 20% for one child up to 40% for 4 or 5 or more children. So they're just, it's the same concept. This is a percentage of your monthly net amount, and it's ranging for 20% for one child. So they'll take 20% out of your monthly check for a child for child support. All right. What did she say? She says this repayment plan is on a borrower's income. It ranges from 1 to 10% of the borrower's adjusted grossly income. Is that yearly or monthly? Let me hear her say it again.
Qualify for longer.
Oh, yeah. And that was the mortgage. That was the mortgage amount. That was the mortgage amount. Real quick. You know what? Let me do this right, because I'm gonna clip this. Let me do this right. We'll start over. Real quick. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is the mortgage. All right. Let me show you. Here's a mortgage. For your student loan repayment, there's 2-tier system payment plans. The first one they called is a tiered standard repayment plan. Fixed repayment plan terms of 10, 15, 20, or 25 years. Term is based on the loan amount. Higher loan balances qualify for longer repayment terms. That is called a mortgage. A fixed repayment terms of 10 to 25 years. That is a mortgage. Why do I say it's a mortgage? I'll show you. What is a Let's look at what a fixed rate mortgage is. A fixed rate mortgage is a home loan where the interest rate remains constant throughout the entire term of the loan, ensuring predictable monthly principal and interest payments. While the 30-year term is most common, these loans offer stability against market interest rate fluctuations unless the borrower chooses to refinance. Now, if you didn't know, you can do a home loan for 10 years or 30 years, 15 years or 30 years. Okay. Just for a random, if you ever get a home loan, always choose the longer mortgage rate, simply because you can have lower payments. Life will happen. And you could always pay towards the principal with lower payments. So if you do get a mortgage, do a fixed rate, choose the higher or choose the longer term to get lower payments, but you can always pay the house off earlier. If you choose a 15-year mortgage, you have to pay it off in 15 years. If you choose a 50-year mortgage, you can pay it off in 15 years, but you'll have a lower payment. But anyway, the student loan thing is the exact same thing as this. These two are the same thing. The tiered standard repayment plan are the same thing as a mortgage. Okay. So they turned that into a mortgage. Let's look at the next one. Okay. Let's check out the next one.
Repayment terms to try and help keep monthly payments more affordable. Now let's talk about the new repayment assistance plan. That's really the big one.
All right, before let me let her finish.
Bases borrower payments on that borrower's income. Repayments range between 1 to 10% of the borrower's income, depending on how much they earn every year.
Okay, so that's a yearly term. They do it a yearly term. So we're going to look in that one, and that one, I call that child support. Okay, I'm going to call that child support. And I call that child support because of this reason right here. If you look at it, it's eerie similar. The numbers aren't the exact same, but it's very similar. This is how child support is calculated. Texas child support is calculated percentage of monthly net resources based on the number of children, ranging from 20% for one child up to 40% for 5 or more children. Okay? Estimate applied to a single income source. Actual court set amounts may vary. So this is what she just explained, but she explained this on the student repayment assistance plan. So your 2 ways to pay back your student loan debts now have turned into either a mortgage or something similar to a child support, in my humble opinion. All right. As you can see here, that's what's going on. And let's let her finish talking and see what she says.
Now, there are several things you need to know about this plan. Anyone who has a direct loan from the federal government is eligible to select this plan. Your required monthly payment is calculated by using a percentage of your adjusted gross income divided by 12. Here's a chart of how that works. For example, if you make less than $20,000, your monthly payment is based on 1% of your adjusted gross income. If you make less than $30,000 a year, it's based on 2% AGI, and so on and so on. And if you make more than $100,000 a year, your payment will be based on 10% of your AGI. Payments are recalculated every year based on your income and your dependents. And if you are married, your spouse's income or loan debt will be considered if you file a joint tax return.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Another reason not to get married. Good Lord. And that, boy, these women finna put that debt on you, boy. Woo. For you idiots out there that's about to get swindled in a marriage. Yeah, Dave Ramsey finna tell you fools, that man's not a real man because he doesn't take on his wife's debt, even though she came into the marriage. She had that debt already. Now, I agree. If if you knew she had the debt and you still married her, yeah, then you foolishly, you owe it. However, if you didn't know and she married you and swindled you into it, then, I think that's fair to be like, you ain't got to pay it. But as you see, filing jointly, bro, you finna catch that work. So that's why you got to vet or just stay out of marriages in America and go get married elsewhere, in my humble opinion. But let's let her keep cooking because it doesn't stop there.
If you have a dependent, the Department of Education will reduce your monthly payment by $50 for every dependent you claim on your taxes. If you make an on-time monthly payment, there are 2 perks. 1, under this plan, any unpaid monthly interest will be waived. And 2, if your interest is out of control and if your on-time monthly payment only reduces your loan principal by less than $50, the federal government will contribute another $50 each month to your principal balance.
So they're saying the interest is going to be so damn insane, you're never going to be able to pay this off without actually saying it. At least that's what I'm getting from it, unless I'm missing something.
Now, there are some downsides to this new income-driven repayment assistance plan. One is your monthly payment may actually be more expensive than it was under the old income-driven repayment plans. And that is just simply because this repayment assistance plan uses a different formula to calculate your monthly payment. And the other downside is, unlike the old repayment plans, any unpaid student loan debt will be forgiven after 30 years of repayment. The old plans forgave student loan debt after 20 or 25 years. One more new thing I want to make sure I point out to you, as I reported in this video, if you sign up for auto pay on any of your federal student loans, the federal government will now knock off 1% of your loan interest rate. That rate could be anywhere between 6 to 10%. So getting rid of 1 percentage point, depending on the size of your loan, could save you a couple of $100. Now, there are a bunch of other changes to student loans, especially with the borrowing limits, the Parent Plus loans, and the graduate loans. I can get into all of that if you want.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. You ladies and gentlemen, welcome to modern day slavery under usury. Hello, here we are. Yes, sir. Modern day slavery, ladies and gentlemen. How does it feel? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? I don't know, but I know that that is what that is. And that's just the student loans. That's just student loans. You know what I mean? Anybody who's married and getting in divorce and child custody, that's another slavery within itself. You know, I can go down a list of different forms of it, but that's just, modern day slavery. Now let's take a look at some of the student loan debt that people owe. So we're going to start with, you know what? Let me see. What was the first one? I had a first one. Where did she go? Where did you go, young lady? Here you are. We're going to start with you. Here we go. So we're going to start with this lady. She's going to budget her paycheck. Single mom paying off $51,000 of student loan debt. Shout out to her. Let's see how she's doing managing how to pay this off. Here we go.
Budget my paycheck with me as a 27-year-old nurse, single mom living in my parents' garage apartment so I can pay off $51,000 worth of student loan debt. I work a full-time 9-to-5 as a registered nurse in a very small town, and after taxes, deductions, and contributions, I took home $2,227. First thing that I think of when I get paid is what bills do I have to cover, and for this paycheck, I only had to pay my mom and dad $471. $300 of that goes to rent and utilities, and the remaining is for my phone bill and car insurance. Once my bills are out of the way, I then budget out my expenses, and my expenses pretty much remain the same for every single paycheck. I allocate $350 for groceries. Per month, I probably spend around $700 to $800, but I really want to get that down, so lately I've been eating really simple meals. Even though I don't eat out anymore, I do let my daughter eat out, and I allocate $25 for that. For gas, I'm planning to spend about $80. I actually might go over this budget because gas has just been so expensive lately. Now for miscellaneous, I budget myself $75 for this. This is for all of the purchases that I unexpectedly make. And then for our kittens, I did allocate $75 for them. Moving on to debt, the only debt that I currently have are my student loans, and I have to pay a minimum of $335. For investments, I currently don't invest for myself anymore. I really want to get back to it after I'm done paying back my student loans, but I still do invest for my daughter. I have a Robinhood account for her, and I invest $50 per paycheck. After budgeting out my entire paycheck, I have $789 left to spend. I'm currently on a debt payoff journey, so that $789 will be used for my student loan debt, but there's a twist. I won't be the one to decide how much I get to pay back. I let someone else do that for me. So follow along because I will be sharing that in my next video. Budget my paycheck.
Okay, I don't understand. So she gave, well, what the hell? Why did she said she gave $335 to the debt, didn't she? So student loan, she has to pay $335 to the student loan. She's left with $789 after she does all of her budgeting, right? So that's what she's left over with after they take out $335. If you have in my humble opinion, if you got $789 left, I would double this, or I would take this if it's possible and put it towards the principal to bring down the principal amount, or take half of this or 60% of this and put it towards the principal to help make that $335 go faster. That's just my humble opinion. But as you can see, that's $51,000. I don't know how fast she's going to be able to make that amount go down, but she's on a journey to do so. So shout out to her and more power to her. So going to give her a round of applause for making an effort and having a plan to move forward. All right, moving on to the next one of modern day slavery. All right, and this is just in one form. I'm using student loan debt as the catalyst, but there's many different forms, as we saw. The kafala system, where they use the people to enslave them under their employer. Yeah, go watch the show. If I clip this, go and look at the show and you'll see that system. Anyway, let's look at this lady and let's see how she breaks down her student loan debt, and the amount that she has is $338,000. Good Lord. Let's see what she says. Here we go.
Follow-up video to the one I posted yesterday about my $338,000 of student loans. Posting it mostly because there was a handful of folks who commented saying, let me know what you figure out. I think probably because they find themselves in a similar sort of niche situation that I'm in, where I went from medical school straight into the SAVE forbearance, and I haven't yet made any payments on my student loans. What was incredibly helpful were the folks that took the time to explain specifically what is going on with the difference in how RAP versus pay treats interest. And now, based on those comments and the information that people shared, I think I'm actually going to do RAP instead of pay. Here's the reason why. I would have to pay like $1,800 a month to even keep up with the interest my loans are accruing while I'm in residency and fellowship. In the WRAP plan, there is an interest subsidy that so long as I am paying everything on time and making whatever my minimum payment is, my total loan balance will not go up. Even though I will be paying about $120 more per month on WRAP versus pay, I will be saving about $18,000 in interest every single year. So I'm basically paying $1,400 to save myself $18,000 a year in the long run. Why this matters for me is that I don't think I want to do public service loan forgiveness. And this is part of the reason why everyone is saying like meet with financial advisors. I have actually, and they always try to convince me to do public service loan forgiveness. And for the sake of like my well-being and my desire to just sort of like move on from this process, I don't want to wait 10 years to stop paying $3,000 to $4,000 a month. I want to pay off my loans as quickly as possible and then take that money that I'll have lying around and put it towards a mortgage and not do like a starter home. My first home purchase will be the big, nice attending home that people can get once they're done paying off their loans. That is what makes the most sense for me and my husband and what I want to do. So that's just kind of where it is. The fact that interest will not accumulate on my loans and I won't watch my loans go from $330,000 to $375,000 while I finish residency and fellowship is actually huge for my mental health. Like that was one of the reasons why I was
Okay, mental health. Here we go. Anyway, so she's married and he's burdened with the debt as well. He may have student loans. We don't know that. Maybe he might have student loans. She didn't mention that. I'm pretty sure she would have mentioned that if he had it too. But you know, she's married. I'm pretty sure he knew. So she's got the student loans debt. So $338,000 in student loan debt, bro. That's brutal. That, and they were talking, I don't know what these two payment plans she was talking about, WRAP versus save or something like that, or whatever she said, or pay versus WRAPs or whatever. Let me see at the beginning she mentioned something about it. She said WRAP versus let me see, trying to figure out between, what was it? The WRAP versus, come on, talk faster. Where is it? Right here, WRAP versus pay. All right, so the difference between how WRAP versus pay works. And one of them says she would have to pay $1,800 a month, not knowing how much of that $1,800 would go towards interest. But still $1,800 a month just to pay off the student loan debt. I don't know which one would be faster. But even then, 30 years, this debt doesn't, I forgot what this lady said. This lady said 30 years, something about 30 years, like you're still stuck with this thing after like 30 some odd years. I forget how she put it or what she said. What else? If you put it on auto pay, you get 1% interest reduction. Student loan forgiveness won't happen for 30 years. So you're stuck with it for 30 years. And even then, I mean, if you're paying on it, it doesn't go away. That's my understanding on how that works. If you're paying on it, I don't think the forgiveness starts until you literally, like the day you stop, and then 30 years onward, I believe. That's just my assumption. I don't know, but $338,000, as you see. So, you know, she said her mental health hitting her and all this stuff. I'm pretty sure that's a burden. You can't get a home or a house and all that stuff because all this is just a hindrance, as you can see. So modern day slavery. Once again, we got another lady here. She's going to tell us about her student loan adventure and what's going on with her student loan amount. So let's take a look at what she's dealing with when it comes to student loans. Here we go. Let me turn her up. I had her turned down. Here we go.
Of debt as a fourth-year med student, which means I am in over $300,000 of debt as a fourth-year med student, which means when my loans hit in August, I'm going to be in over $400,000 of debt. But what's crazy is look at how much interest I've accumulated while in medical school, and look at how much interest I'm accumulating every single day.
$65 worth of interest every single day. My Lord, $65 worth of interest a day. Did that other girl stuff say that? Did she say, no, hers didn't say the interest a day. She was stopping the interest a day. 65, and that's only going to go up as the amount goes up. So the higher the amount goes up, the higher the interest amount. Oh. I don't even want to hear what else she got to say. I think that's enough. And she said 4th year. She ain't done.
Is over $65 a day, every day. And so let's talk about this. Why am I accumulating interest while I'm in school? Well, that's because in the US, graduate students are not eligible for subsidized loans. I'm still taking out government loans, but the government's just not paying my interest. Okay, they're paying a little bit of my interest. Let me explain. I am accumulating interest on my principal balance. Now, typically you end up paying interest on your unpaid interest. The government says, and they actually cover it, and that's what that like 65 cents is. But look at these interest rates, guys. 8%, 9%. That's why I'm accumulating so much interest right now. So what am I gonna do about it? Honestly, I don't know yet. But I did recently learn about the RAP plan, which is Repayment Assistance Program, and it's for residents. This plan should prevent your debt from completely ballooning during residency. Because listen, my debt is gonna be $3,000 a month in just interest. I can't pay $3,000.
$3,000 a month in just interest. Yep. Yeah, it's over, bruh. Slavery. That's slavery. I don't even want to hear what else she got to say, bruh. $300,000 in interest. You're not even touching the principal. Wow. Slavery. Modern day slavery. And that's only in student loan debt. That's just in student loan debt. Oh, boy, $65 a day in interest. And it only goes up. Modern day slavery, bro. So if they can't get you at the employee office, they're going to get you in college. I mean, regardless of the case, maybe they're going to hit you at some point. Modern day slavery. They keep you in debt shackles. Bible talk about this. Don't be in debt to nobody. Let's go ahead and look at the last one that we got before we wrap this show up, because it's getting hot as hell in here. I can't take no more. Final one. Here we go. Buddy here has student loan debt. How we doing, buddy? Please tell me you're doing better than the rest.
Were about how much money I owed in student loans. And I thought my first TikToks were about how much money I owed in student loans. And I thought, what a great time this is to give an update. My total balance as of April 30th, 2026 is $454,053.55.
I was having hope for you, my guy. But let's continue.
Because of interest, this number increases by about $62 every day. And you can see that my income-based repayment has me paying $73 per month. My first video about this was made 5 months ago, and today's number is $10,000 higher than it was back then.
In 5 months, it went up $10,000? In 5 months? That's $2 a month.
Then because of interest. And my total interest that I've accrued is almost $60,000. Tomorrow it'll be $60,000 in interest accrued. Assuming the repayment process doesn't become even more catastrophic, I'll have to make 10 years of payments while working for a nonprofit children's hospital, and then my loans will be forgiven. After I finish my training, the number I pay every month will increase very dramatically. But I have 4 more.
Wait, hold on. Let me see. What was that part again about the children's hospital?
Tomorrow it'll be.
Okay, let me see about forgiving. Hold on. I think I missed something. Let me catch this.
$60,000 in interest accrued. Assuming the repayment process doesn't become even more catastrophic, I'll have to make 10 years of payments while working for a nonprofit children's hospital, and then
work 10 years for a nonprofit children's hospital, and then
my loans will be forgiven.
And that's only if nothing catastrophic happens to student loan debt. I mean, and you're hoping in 10 years they don't change something. That's hoping in 10 years everything stays the same, and we know that's not the case. Good Lord.
After I finish my training, the number I pay every month will increase very dramatically. But I have 4 more years of training before I can become a pediatric oncologist and make any amount of money that you probably think I'm making. So how much interest will I owe by then? And will I even touch my principal amount that I owe by the time it's forgiven? Or will I spend the entire 10 years just paying off interest? I haven't done the math to figure out yet, but I think it'll be close. My first TikToks were about how much money I owed in.
Wow. That's crazy. And somebody said this right here. Somebody said, the question is, how are you only paying $73 per month with over $400,000 in student loans? Which I agree, because if you pay attention, his daily amount that he's incurring in interest is less than hers, and her student loan debt amount is less than his. If I could find her number, yeah, her student loan debt amount is $328,000, and she's getting $65 worth of debt a day and going up. He has over $450,000, and his daily amount is less than hers. So I'm kind of confused. This person said, somebody said, I agree. Mine is half that, and my payment is over $800. Somebody said he is in residency, so his income is not the standard physician pay. Somebody said, oh my God, I'm at 90K. Somebody said, slay, I'm at 440K. Whew, I'm graduating with probably $500,000 easy. Ugh. Look at this, yo. These are your professional people. They're going to go into their job professions. They ain't finna give a shit about taking care of your needs. They got debt to go. Somebody said, what? The government will forgive your loans after 10 years? So the taxpayers are paying for your education. I pay off my loans with zero help. Nobody would be pediatricians if this isn't how it worked. We wouldn't make enough money to ever pay back our loan. Trying to reframe it as if I'm a freeloader is insane. Okay, well, yeah. Okay, well, I get it. I get it. But the nonprofit part, I don't understand the nonprofit part. Does that mean that you don't get paid? I'm not familiar with that. I'm not too savvy on that. Is the plan to wait until the loaners are forgiven? If so, it seems like a better student loan program would be to just not charge interest at all, or charge something low like 2%. Yeah, I'll pay 10% of my discretionary income every month for 120 months, and then it'll all be forgiven. So he'll be 10% of his income every month for 120 months. He's on child support. He'll be on child support for 120 months. Then it'll all be forgiven. I'm limited in what employers I can seek, but it doesn't really matter because pediatrician oncologists almost all work for nonprofit hospital systems. 120 months. How? So yeah, 10 years. So he'll be on child support for 10 years at 10% every month. Yeah, child support. That's what that's what he'll be on. So what is with you guys? 400. Oh my. Yeah, I agree. Yes, sir. Yes. I mean, just looking at these other people speak, $62 a day of interest is criminal. Let me read the other one's comment section. Let me see what she said. Med school students should be cheaper and no interest. You're in school. Yeah, whatever. I'm sure you already know because you seem super educated on it, but something that helped me pay off my loans faster was paying my minimum and making my extra payment on a single group with my highest interest the next day. With the full amount of my second payment went straight to my principal balance. Exactly. Go to the principal. And then once you finish a group, your minimum monthly payment goes down. Use the extra money to pay towards the second payment or the principal. Yes. Take the money if they allow you to and charge it to the principal. That's the same way you do on a mortgage. If it makes you feel better, I just graduated. I have $500K. I will accrue more than interest during PGY1 than my salary at $60K pre-tax. Someone told me that medical student was only $100K. Right? Somebody lied to you. That is unbelievable. How much debt that is when you really look at it. This is your mortgage. Exactly. This is a 30-year mortgage. This would take someone 30 years to pay off unless it's a grind day in, day out, and just to use all that expense towards the debt. But logically, that's just beyond living on rice and beans. It's possible. I mean, you're going to be a doctor one day, but I would not buy a house. I mean, yes, he's right. It's a mortgage. This is a mortgage. Somebody said a refinance. Yeah, then you start over. Oh my goodness. Somebody said I moved from the PNW to the Midwest and practiced for 6.5 years at a hospital that paid $50K a year to my loans. I was thankful enough to rid myself of my $365,000 debt, but finances are still tough as pediatricians. Hope your passion is a higher paying specialty. Oh no. So she don't get paid enough as a pediatrician, even though, wow, all that debt, all that, just to still be like, man, was it really worth it? Because being a pediatrician don't pay jack. 300K in debt is very bad. Otherwise, you'll end up being in default, which can definitely hurt your credit score at all. Yeah, true. As you can see, man, this stuff is brutal. Let me see if she had a comment section. Let me see if anybody else put in their comment section. So I borrow about 400K to study hard in med school. No, thank you. I would go overseas to study medicine if I had a passion, period. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So let me see. Anybody else got anything on here? In case you weren't aware, a lot of banks have physical mortgage loans that can mean 100% loans up to 1.25 million with no PMI. Depending on the institution, and a signed contract for your job is sufficient. You don't even need a paycheck. Okay, I'm at 275K in a somewhat comparable situation. Thank you so much for explaining this. Yeah. So yeah, man. I reached the same conclusion, and I'm stressing about 22,000. Yeah, as you can see, so just looking at it from that perspective, man, soon all the people in student loan debt and everybody's going to be on some form of child support or have a mortgage without a home. It's just showing you right there that America is in the world is going to be in a modern day slavery system for sure. A modern day slavery system. That's all it is. Slavery on a different level. That's all you're seeing. Slavery on a different level. And it's coming in many different forms. And usury and student loans and immigrants or migrants coming over here and being enslaved to the employer and the job and being forced to vote in a particular direction. Then, women. And at some point, let's just call a spade. Women owing this much money in these professions. They're going to sell their bodies. They're going to start going to prostitution at some point to knock these payments down. That's just a fun fact. That's a factor of life. A lot of these women, which then just goes right into concubinage and all this stuff, like they're going to end up selling their bodies because inflation keeps increasing. Let's check that out while we look at this. What is the inflation rate today? So let's see. So the annual inflation rate in the United States rose from 4.2% in May of 2026, driven significantly by a 3.9% jump in energy prices. While headline inflation reached its highest level since 2023, the core inflation rate, which excludes food and energy, remained lower at 2.9%. So this is excluding food and energy. June 26 inflation rate data is scheduled for release on July 14th. So we're going to find out what the inflation rate is coming up here pretty soon. So let's see. Let's see what would the inflation rate be in 2030. Let's see what happens in 4 years. Let's look at a prediction. Okay. Let's just see what could possibly be. Let's see. What do we have here? Where are we at? Where is it at? So what? I don't even know what this is. Predict. All right, let's hit that button right there. Okay, so let's see where we have. Here we go. So let's look at this real quick. So it says right here, it says $5 in 2027 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $7.69 in 2030, an increase of $2.69 over 13 years. The dollar average inflation rate of 3.37% per year between 2027 and 2030, producing a cumulative price increase of $53.88. The buying power of $5 is predicted to be equivalent to $7.69 in 2030. So it's increasing. And you know, a lot of the time I don't be leaving these numbers because I know that a Totino's pizza that used to be at 99 cents is now $2. That's 100% increase. So, I mean, I don't see that as to be true. I'm just not seeing that. I'm not seeing that that's 100% true. And that's just a prediction. That's not saying, you know, that's what it will be. So with all of these interest rates and all these things going on, and then the rate of these people's job salaries not increasing and all this stuff, like it's gonna, the slavery from back then of labor and chopping off dudes' peepees to make them eunuchs, and that stuff is still alive and well, but it just changed to a debt slavery. I think the only thing that hasn't changed is making women concubines. That ain't changed, because the debt is going to make women choose to be concubines to pay off these debts. And then they're going to have a digital track record. It's going to be a digital track record of them selling their vagina. That's what it's going to be. So as you can see, slavery has not changed. From past tense to modern tense, it has not changed. It still goes on today. It just looks completely different, but it's the exact same concept. It's just debt slavery on a global magnitude. And then now the slave immigration, or the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade, it's still going on today. It's just that instead of putting people on boats and stuff like that, which still happens, but it's allowing people to come over, and instead of forcing them, you just employ them and then put them under forced employment and make them vote in a particular direction to bring on the Eastern ways of a different religion or a Islamic path to bring over here to the West. It's the same thing. Ain't nothing changed. It's the same concept. It still goes on. My message to you today is do everything in your power. Stay positive, eat healthy, and always remember to get rid of all your debts. Get rid of all your debts. Do everything in your power that you can to get back to nature. Get back to nature. Stay in line with nature. Try to remember the Hopi Prophet